entire campus is thrown into chaos. A small number of survivors band together to find a way to escape, but all the exits are blocked by zombies. They can only hide in a locked classroom to temporarily resist. A student named Ning calls her Professor Roy. Her mother has been bedridden for over 6 months, and with this situation, there is no way to get her out. She can only ask the professor, who is out of school, to help take care of her mother. Across the hall, zombies are frantically knocking on the door and the girl has to hang up. At that moment, there is a news alert on TV. The government has officially declared a state of emergency for all of Bangkok, and the origin of the epidemic is the university. The professor goes into the room, opens the iron box containing strange medicines on the table, and looks at Ning's mother. At the same time, another group of survivors hiding in another room also tries to barricade the door. Panicking, Cree tells Sign that this place will eventually fall and that they must find a way to escape. Immediately, he suggests climbing out the window and calls everyone to flee to the balcony outside, where they hear screams coming from the courtyard. At that moment, Tai looks into the distance and sees people climbing to the balcony of the building opposite. No, Ning's younger brother also sees his sister, so he immediately calls her. She didn't expect her brother to be in the other building. Suddenly, someone falls from a high floor, causing everyone to get scared. After calming down, Fu takes Ning's cell phone and tells everyone to find a way to escape to the library that is under renovation. There probably aren't many people there. So, both groups of survivors agree that the library is the best shelter, since fewer people mean fewer zombies. The problem was the long way to the library, as they had to dodge the zombies constantly. As a result, their progress is extremely slow. At this point, Fa continues to call on her cell phone. She is very worried that her father, who is out of school, has had bad luck, but Cree snatches the phone from her, saying that calling now is like stirring up a hornet's nest. The group realizes that the zombies have surrounded them, and leaving through the balcony is impossible. Fa immediately takes out a Bluetooth speaker from his backpack, suggesting that they place it in the building across the street to use the sound to lure the zombies to another location. When he asks who will go and place the speaker, everyone lowers their heads. At this point, Cree steps forward and volunteers for the task. The boys just stand there watching Cree, taking the speaker and moving slowly. Everyone is worried, and at that moment, Lily picks up her cell phone, discovering that the government has just sent out a notification. Since the epidemic is out of control, they have decided to cut off all electricity, water, and communication signals in the infected area, making the boys wonder if the government plans to abandon them. At this point, Cree has arrived in the middle of the building's main hall, far enough away to attract the zombies. She places the speaker on the ground, but after turning it on, a notification sound rings out. Cree is so scared that she falls to the ground, but fortunately, there is still no movement. She only breathes in relief, not noticing a zombie appearing on the second floor. Meanwhile, Ning's group is having an easier time. Despite one of the girls twisting like a coward, the others are fine. They have already discovered the characteristics of zombies. They are not only extremely sensitive to sound, but also like to gather in places with light. Nin and the others just need to stay away from the street lights and move in the dark so that the tolerated zombies don't notice them. However, the girl's twisted ankle has made the group slower, and the noise she makes also attracts the zombies' attention. At that moment, everyone remains motionless, not even daring to take a deep breath. In the meantime, Cree waited and turned on the music on his mobile phone. The speaker made a deafening sound, and in an instant, the sound of footsteps quickly echoed with zombies running towards him. Thanks to this, not only their group, but also Ning's group had a chance to breathe. So, the two teams moved towards the library. Unfortunately, Nan really couldn't walk anymore. Paul sat down with the intention of carrying her on his back, but suddenly, a drop of blood fell because there was a zombie hanging from the tree. Paul immediately charged Nan and ran, but his speed was not enough. In no time, he was knocked down by the zombie. Seeing that Nan was in danger, Paul kicked the creature. But the next moment, it crawled up and bit the girl's calf. At this point, the other zombies also heard the noise and approached. Some boys ran back, dragging the friend by force and leaving Nan behind. They all ran quickly towards the library, just in time to meet Cree's group. The two brothers, Ning and Nan, finally reunited, moved to see each other again. The other boys went to barricade the main door, and it seemed that Fu was right, as there were no zombies there, making this one the best shelter for the time being. Meanwhile, Fa called his father again, but this time discovered that there was no signal. Lily then reminded everyone that the government had announced this in advance. They not only cut off the cell phone signal, but also the electricity and water. So he figured he had to find a way out, because without water and electricity, he wouldn't be able to last long. However, Ning immediately opposed this idea, believing that if he went out at that moment, he would only find danger and die soon. The only option was to find a way to call for help from outside and wait for rescue. At that moment, Knight went outside with a radio, assuming that it might have been left by the renovation workers. The news repeated the notification. The area around the university had been isolated by the military, and the government would cut off the electricity and water at 8:30 in the evening. They asked the survivors to try to move to higher ground because military helicopters would rescue uninfected people during the day. Hearing this, they concluded that the university was the origin of the virus, but it was strange that no one knew about this before. San thought about the parking lot on the roof of the library. He could go up there to wait for the rescue helicopter. However, Ning thought that he should break the news to everyone. San immediately protested, saying that it would only cause more trouble, but Jean supported Ning's plan. Pry watched the two men fighting for attention and told everyone to get ready, because in zombie movies, the one who does something wrong always ends badly. This offended almost everyone, except Ning, who didn't care and went to the transmission room on the second floor. After turning on the sound equipment, she started broadcasting on the radio, calling for the students to go to the roof to wait for rescue. Ning was going to continue, but that didn't stop her. She ignored him and told everyone to go to the library, the safest place. As soon as she finished speaking, the lights went out. The government had begun the power cut, and the zombies that previously gathered under the light were now scattering into the darkness. The survivors looked towards the library as they plotted a course. Elsewhere, the dead Nan opened her white eyes, twisted and stood up, slowly moving with the horde. At the library, F.A. continued to try to call her father, though she knew there was no signal. This only made her more upset. Lily tried to comfort her but was reprimanded. Her father was selling things in front of the gate and could barely walk, so he must have passed away. Prey couldn't take it anymore and angrily told F.A. to go get him alone. Lily stood up to defend F.A. and they almost got into a fight. Jean came over to console F.A. and his kind words calmed him down. This made Ning look at him several times, and San sitting next to him became jealous. At that moment, N ran to the main hall, gesturing for everyone to look out the window through the night vision camera. They saw the zombies moving in a coordinated manner, all in the same direction. It seemed like the zombies could only communicate. Ning found it pointless to discuss this, as it was better to rest up to go up to the roof the next day. Everyone agreed, but no one managed to sleep. When dawn broke, he felt it was time. He told everyone to split up, find weapons, and meet at 7 a.m. to go to the rooftop parking lot together. After everyone was out, San took Jean aside and warned him to stay away from Ning. Jean thought it was provocation, but San scoffed, saying that Jean didn't know anything about Ning. It turns out that Ning and Professor Roy were secretly researching a project, and it was related to her mother's strange illness. Meanwhile, the other students were searching for weapons. Pri got lucky and found a toolbox. She called her colleagues, but K. Knight looked out the window and discovered that the zombies had returned. The students from the other group also noticed, wondering how they got past the blockade. Pred and the others planned to go around through the main hall, but saw a zombie cleaning the floor. The group finally realized that the zombies were coming to work. They had badges, so it wasn't strange that they entered through the employee entrance, blocking the survivors' path. Lily planned to jump out the window to go around the main hall, but suddenly, the alarm clock on the phone in front went off. The screen was broken and she couldn't turn it off. The crisp ringing quickly caught the zombies' attention, and Lily had to jump out the window to escape. Unfortunately, she was quickly knocked down by a zombie and felt guilty and refused to throw the phone away. The zombies were chasing her in a long line. She ran in circles and jumped out the window just to see that Lily had been bitten on the neck. F.A. screamed and kept running. As she turned into a hallway, she bumped into Ning's group. They were trapped in the campus, and the only way out was the roof, but the zombies behind her were still chasing her closely. The boys did their best to block the fire door. After the others moved away, they let go, ready to use scissors to clear the way, guiding everyone out of the staircase. A crowd of zombies flooded the hallway as well, but this time F.A. went into a complete panic. Her phone was still ringing non-stop, so the others escaped to the next staircase, leaving only her with all the noise to become the focus of the zombies. Everyone closed the door, hiding in the Alton staircase. Paul collapsed because he had seen Nan die the night before. And now the same thing happened to F.A. At that moment, someone discovered a wound on his arm. Everyone instinctively backed away. Only his brother San approached to comfort him, saying that he would not abandon him. Paul, in despair, thought that this was his end, already wanting to give up. It was then that someone noticed shards of glass in the cut. discovering that it was just a normal scratch. The next second, everyone breathed in relief and ran to the roof just in time to see a helicopter flying overhead. Ning at the end of the line slowed down and saw through the crack a horde of zombies approaching. She ran to the roof screaming to run. At that moment, the horde invaded. The helicopter opened fire immediately and Ning's group managed to hide in another passage, but they could no longer reach the roof. So, they returned to the parking lot and were stunned. F.A. was there, transformed into a zombie. Paul, crying, came out of the group. He felt guilty for Fa's death and just wanted to say goodbye. But before he could speak, an axe flew out and hit F.A. It was the 4 PE students. As soon as they arrived, they ordered everyone to run. Paul P. was dragged away but still saw the student hit F.A. once more. The groups gathered at the gym where there was food in the vending machines. Mo, who was close to Paul, found a first aid and stared at the bloody axe, recalling Fa's death over and over again. Jean, on the other hand, seemed more interested in the gun of the PE student leader. The guy approached, discovering that Jean was knowledgeable about weapons and introduced himself as her. He and his friend KH were semi-professional shooting athletes, but he had said nothing more than a box of bullets before confronting them, wanting to know why he hadn't come as soon as Ning shared the information about the rescue. In response, they mocked him, saying that he thought those who trusted the government were too naive and that waiting for the rescue to be on the roof was a trap. These words made everyone remember the terrifying scene of the helicopter firing indiscriminately at the roof. Ning's brother compared the situation to zombie movies. The government would fail to distinguish the incubating infected, so they wouldn't let anyone out of the quarantine zone. This made everyone give up on the idea of going to the roof. Ma claiming because if she hadn't announced the news, the zombies wouldn't have gathered at the library. They should have known that the zombies were originally moving towards the grand auditorium. It turns out that Nan had recorded this scene. Earth and his friends exchanged glances, confirming a suspicion. They had also noticed this anomaly the night before and secretly followed the zombies to the auditorium. The group discovered that there was a zombie who seemed to be in charge of the others. Earth suggested that he go back to check if that one was the zombie leader because maybe the eliminated one could solve everything. However, Ning and Muck found the idea reckless and unrealistic. At that moment, Fu made a new discovery. The night before, it had rained and the temperature was 25 degrees Celsius and the zombies moved slowly. But at this time, with degrees Celsius, they were running like rockets. This showed that their ability to move was related to temperature. So, they agreed to act during the night. At that moment, Mo discovered that Paul was missing. Jean ran outside and saw him fighting with a physical education student. Gus, the guy who killed F.A., had fallen into a pool of blood. They all ran to separate them, but Paul was agitated. He had no choice but to knock him out with the axe. Paul was tied up and locked up. The attacked student explained that he didn't want revenge. He wanted to open the door so that the zombies could come in. San said that her brother had been depressed since childhood and was without his medication. At that moment, people counted that besides the dead, 2 were missing. Muck laughed because she knew that Knight and Sin were missing and guessed that they were in danger. Previously, when everyone was in the library, she had led the 2 on a desperate run. When they found Lily breathing her last, Sign, who was nearby, collapsed. Muck, seeing that it was useless, abandoned the 2 to follow the other group. Only Knight stayed by his side comforting him. After a long time, he managed to pull S away, but the next moment, Lily came back as a zombie. Knight didn't expect her to transform so quickly, so he pulled Cindy and ran. The 2 fled straight to the gym's swimming pool, but the zombie followed them. Surrounded, they jumped into the pool. The zombie went behind but couldn't hold her breath and ended up sinking. Knight and Sin, still in shock, swam to the edge. At that moment, a group of survivors appeared. Sateri was one of the members of the cheerleading squad from the art department. Seeing Lily's body floating, the team leader screamed and jumped into the pool. Everyone struggled to get Lily out since she was also a member of the team, a first year that the captain adored. Meanwhile, Ears led the determined PE students to go to the large auditorium to investigate. They asked Nan to go with them and film with his camera. His sister Ning became worried and didn't want her younger brother to risk it, suggesting that he just lend a camera. However, Nan refused to give up. He was determined to go and wouldn't waste this opportunity. EHTH didn't delay any longer and led everyone out of the gym. As he predicted, the zombie horde followed towards the auditorium. Meanwhile, Muck remained in the gym. Worried about Paul and without anyone seeing, she unlocked the door. Paul seemed like a different person, saying that the zombies were in the final form of evolution. Mo realized that he was beside himself. He shouted that becoming a zombie was no different than dying, but then he stopped, regaining some consciousness, and whispered that Mech would never understand him. So, he went outside. Passing through the lobby, Paul saw blue veins on Gus's skin. He was about to transform. At the same time, Erd and the others arrived on the second floor of the auditorium. Hidden at the window, unfilmed, a cleaning lady was surrounded by zombies like a leader, and some zombies even offered her food. When Nan's body was eaten, one zombie screamed in pain, resembling a pack with a hierarchy. May and the others stood there stunned, clutching their weapons. In the gym, Jean's group heard a noise. When they went to check, Gus had transformed into a zombie with the axe still stuck in his head. At the same time, Mo was found tied up. There was no doubt that Paul had done all this. Gus's friend ran out with a gun, but Paul was already out on the street. Seeing the zombies in the distance, he shouted excitedly that he wanted to join the horde. Unfortunately, before the zombies could arrive, Gus's friend caught up with him and fired several shots into his thigh. If Ning and John hadn't intervened, Paul would have died right there. However, the noise the group made disturbed the zombies in the large auditorium. In an instant, they came out like a waterfall and the ground seemed to shake. S and the others had just finished descending when they collided with the horde. The group screamed and ran in all directions. On the street, John finally controlled the shooter and ran to help Paul. The group was surrounded. Then, one of the boys took the colleague's gun, shooting at the zombies to provide cover. The others ran back to the gym, but one of the teenagers stayed behind. Sen saw the scene, ran and helped him escape, shouting that this was not the time for emotion. So, they ran towards the research center. After catching his breath, the boy raised the gun and pointed it at Paul. Realizing that his arm had been bitten off, knowing that he would not survive, he shouted that Paul had harmed everyone. Seeing the others still smiling, he threw the remaining bullets at San, delivered a blow to end Paul's life and then gave up. The action was swift, leaving Ning stunned. Jean was deeply upset but recalled what San said about Ning and the professor searching for a cure. Not long before, Jean had seen elderly people entering the lab, including the head maid. When he saw this scene, he wondered if the zombie horde was the result of the professor and Ning's experiments. The biology professor who wanted to cure Ning's mother barely slept while searching for the antidote. However, the sponsor was impatient, demanding results in 3 weeks and guaranteeing total protection. The desperate professor searched through all the documents and read about the immortal jellyfish that contained a protein that could keep cells active forever. Believing this to be the key, he asked the sponsor for a prize. 100 years for approvals. The professor took action and approached a school cleaner, convincing her to participate in the experiment with a protein serum in exchange for a good reward as long as she kept the secret. The cleaner thanked him immensely, believing that she was lucky. Using his reputation, the professor quickly gathered a large group of poor workers who were willing to participate in the test. Upon receiving the payment, the cleaner sighed and told the others that she had been paid, sending them away before anyone found out. Over time, she began to feel worse and worse, with dark circles under her eyes. That day, she had difficulty climbing the stairs. Ning was frightened when she saw her, and although she didn't talk much, they had known each other for 4 years. The girl advised her to go to the hospital, but thinking about her useless son, the cleaning lady decided to hold on. She worked all day, feeling dizzy, and when she got home, she received a message from her son asking for money. She scratched the back of her neck and a slimy, transparent substance stuck to her hand. The professor noted that the cleaning lady was normal. He wanted to stop the remedy, but she wanted to continue. The professor decided to test her blood and, upon receiving the results, noted that there were a large number of parasites. At that moment, he received a message from Ning with a document. The research said that the immortal jellyfish was susceptible to parasites. It increased regeneration and aggression in others. There was no doubt that the professor's reckless test had transferred the parasite to humans. The maid's body was becoming weaker and weaker. Blue veins appeared on her face and blood flowed from her back. Ning slowly let go of the professor's diary. After all, Ning and the professor were collaborating and the diary was in a safe whose password was brother to Ning's birthday. She admitted to providing the information about the jellyfish, but said that the professor strictly rejected the idea at the time and had no idea that he was secretly researching it. At that time, a USB flash drive in the safe, believing it to contain more important information. When he was preparing to see the contents, San pushed Ning to the ground because Earth had transformed. He thought Earth was dead, but he had transformed into a zombie. The two hid under a table. Jean remembered the gun that Earth dropped and stood up, knocking on the door in green to lure the zombie away. Taking advantage of the distraction, turned its head. At that moment, San pushed the door open and Kay came out. He kicked the zombies and quickly held them down. Ning fearlessly took the gun and pulled the trigger. After dealing with the zombie, they cleaned the blood from their bodies. Ning explained that Earth S was infected before giving up. That's why he transformed. It took the USB drive again. We have to know the truth. Meanwhile, San's group returned safely to the gymnasium, but with casualties. 2 PE students died and Ning and Jean disappeared. San vented her anger on Mo, blaming her for letting Paul go. Sitting in the corner, she blamed herself when she realized that San enjoyed being a leader but always blamed others when something went wrong. Ignoring the discomfort, Mo began watching the tape about the zombie leader and immediately recognized the Academy's maid. She noted that when the zombie name was eaten, another zombie screamed as if it had lost its own daughter. They came to the conclusion that the inheritance creating a connection. So they must all be descendants of the maid, the original zombie, which led them to wonder how she had become infected. San recalled that she worked at the Faculty of Natural Sciences where Ning was studying. The important thing was how to break the impasse. Muck suggested killing the maid in the hopes that the horde would collapse, but the others feared that this would enrage them. If they held back human emotions, they should capture her alive. With the leader as their host, the zombies did not act. Everyone agreed. They knew that zombies instinctively repeated their jobs, and the zombie leader maid was no exception. Every morning, she would clean the dormitory of the Faculty of Natural Sciences. This was the best opportunity to capture her. Although the idea seemed crazy, if he planned carefully, the success rate was high. Sens was once again appointed as the leader planning the tasks, but when it came to who would be the leader, everyone argued. Muck criticized San, asking with what authority he appointed himself leader. She felt that Fu was intelligent and responsible, the most suitable to lead. Seeing that the others agreed, Fu assumed it and chose the nerdy friend as his leader. However, he only needed to hide in the room to attract attention. In the meantime, Ning connected the professor's USB drive. The file said that the disaster was caused by a plant called Hansong. Years ago, the professor and Ning's mother were colleagues at the same research institute. But due to a frame-up, Ning's mother took the blame to protect him. It turns out that the colleague took photos of her and the professor during a meeting. Both already had families, so she had to disappear. Ning's mother planned to turn herself in, but discovered that she was pregnant and decided to flee. 3 years later, she returned to her hometown with 2-year-old Nom. She kindly introduced the son to Ning, saying that she was his sister. However, due to her tainted past, she was unable to return to scientific research, doing odd jobs in a supermarket to raise the 2 children. Ning's mother thought he would live like this until she met Professor Roy, who introduced him to a tycoon. The tycoon wanted to hire him for a secret project and needed high technical proficiency and a lifetime of secrecy. The Song Project was researching how to maintain cell activity after death so that the bodies of the tycoon's family would not decompose. Ning's mother's research went well, but she had no idea that Ju, the family's playboy, existed. One day, an assistant prepared a semi-finished product to test on rats, but a drunken Jew invaded with friends. Seeing the assistant alone, he attacked her. She, preferring to die, took the tube of experimental drug and injected it into Jay's neck. In a panic, he asked what she had injected and angrily hit her with a toolbox. When Ning's mother arrived, the assistant was dead. Soon, abnormal symptoms appeared in Ju. The semi-finished serum took effect, and the tycoon demanded that Ning's mother suspend Lansol. She should focus on finding the antidote for her only son. Ning's mother realized the cruelty of the tycoon's family, and to prevent her children from being implicated, Audot also injected Jay's semi-finished serum into herself. This would calm the tycoon and dispel suspicion, but as time went by, she discovered that searching for the antidote was difficult. One day, Ju fell into a deep coma and realized that her time was running out. So, she told the tycoon to entrust the task to the professor. Ning's mother knew that he would not refuse because Non was the son of her and Professor Roy. For the woman he loved, the professor agreed. He recorded the video to clear Ning of the jellyfish search, which was a personal act on his part. But he had separated the jellyfish serum without bacteria that could perhaps cure Ning and Ju's mother. Ning became desperate, regretting that he could not give the cure to everyone. At that moment, Jean opened the cabinet and found a tube of the separated serum, probably the antidote. Full of hope, she decided that she had to take the antidote out of the campus. At that moment, San's group began the plan to capture the zombie leader. They arrived early at the zombies' workplace and dispersing around agreed to use flags as a signal. observing her entire travel route and crouched at the entrance of the rectorate building before hearing the sound of footsteps. The cleaning lady was the first to arrive. The boy ran behind the table, waited for her to pass, and climbed to the top of the stairs, signaling with the flag. The friends received the signal and ran to the faculty dormitory as they knew she would start her work there. A flashback shows that the previous days were a heat wave. The security guard was the first to fall ill, followed by a biology student. Since the cleaning lady had been taking the drug for the longest time, blood flowed when she fell. Almost simultaneously, the infected people rose up, indiscriminately attacking those around them. Back in the present, Jean and Ning exited the lab, finding the cleaning lady at the top of the stairs. The three of them froze. Ning remembered that she had found this woman in the same place. She asked if the cleaning lady still remembered her, but the woman remained motionless with blank eyes. This made the ambush group anxious. Soon, the other zombies would arrive to work and capturing the leader would be impossible. Furthermore, survival would be the problem. It was said that the plan had to continue, so he ran out of the room making noise to attract the zombies' attention. Ning recognized her brother's voice and ran out of the staircase. Seeing Nan about to be attacked, she chased after him. Luckily, Jean pulled him back in time. This allowed the maid to enter the ambush area. They all ran out and controlled the zombie, but someone covered her head, leaving her mouth exposed. Giant Swift shot the zombie multiple times in the head. Everyone was irritated because they worked all night on the plan and Jean ruined everything. He defended himself by saying that he didn't know. At that moment, the other zombies entered the building, returning to their posts. San vented his anger on Muck, blaming her for letting Paul down once again. At the same time, seeing his beloved about to recover, the professor could not rejoice because the price of the antidote was very high. When he looked out the window, the university was in flames. But before Ning's mother could recover, the tycoon acted first. The professor and Ning's mother were taken to a secret laboratory. The tycoon was not satisfied with the progress, but wanted to test it on his son. The other pure serum was at the faculty. The tycoon admitted that the disaster was the result of extracting the serum and coldly said that as long as no one knew the truth, he would be safe. Professor Roy, worried about Ning and Nan, hoped that the tycoon would save them by searching for the serum. The tycoon hesitated but agreed even if it was only to save 2 people. Still, he insisted that only 2 people go out because he knew that the survivors would have to stay in the quarantine area. Ning's group, trapped in the rectorate building, was still discussing how to escape. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. It was another zombie trying to enter his workplace. Everyone rushed in panic. If he continued to knock, the lock would break. N made the situation worse by informing that the temperature was rising and the zombies would soon go crazy. Then Ning had an idea. If he couldn't capture the boss, he could create a new zombie infected by her. It would be a second-generation zombie that could perhaps threaten the normal zombies outside. Ning understood. There was a first aid kit in the cabinet. So she learned a syringe and drew the maid's blood containing the virus from the original zombie, asking her not to act emotionally. But after knowing so many truths, Ning had lost faith in this world. She handed the professor's USB drive to her brother, asking for his survival. Suddenly, Jin pulled out the gun and pointed it at Ning, forcing Ning to drop the syringe. He realized that Ning didn't care if the method worked. She was just avoiding the problem like her mother, but she was sure that Jean wouldn't shoot. So she tried to inject herself but then threw the syringe away. At that moment, the zombies broke down the door. Jean pulled the trigger and the shot attracted a few more. He shot several and realized that this was the end. The group ran out of the dorm, but the stairs were full of zombies, so he could only run to the roof. Jean stayed behind to delay them with the bullets finished. After changing hallways, the path ahead was blocked, but finally they climbed to the roof, all of them desperately holding the door. But the zombies continued to advance. At that moment, the helicopter with Professor Roy arrived. Ning, afraid that he would take it away, showed the tube of jellyfish serum. The professor, suppressing the excitement, ordered the pilot to land. The girls ran hoping to get out. However, only Ning was allowed on the plane. Mo looked on furiously, asking why she couldn't go. Jean on the other side eliminated zombies through the crack in the door, relieving the pressure. The professor called Nan's name. Jean signaled N to board, but he was conflicted because he didn't want to abandon his friends. Ning continued to call out for her brother, but mooed the syringe of blood from the zombie leader. She thought that if someone had to be sacrificed, Nan was the best choice. He seemed to understand Muck's intentions, so he stood still, allowing her to inject the serum into his neck. Ning witnessed everything from afar and had a meltdown as the pilot took off. Jane's group had locked the door with chains, ensuring safety. Otherwise, he would become a second-generation zombie. A month later, the tycoon's son was stable. Ning's mother was cured in an abandoned building, but was in a cage surrounded by zombies. At the same time, Ning's mother woke up with a light